The courtroom was stark and silent, sunlight pouring in through the tall windows as Anna Jackson sat at the defendant's table. She was a 34-year-old African-American mother, a social worker, and someone who believed deeply in helping others. Today, she was the one who needed help. Her hands trembled slightly, but her back was straight. She wouldn't let them see her fear, even though it gripped her heart like a vice. She had been accused of stealing a diamond necklace from an upscale jewelry store. The accusation was as outrageous as it was baseless. Anna had only entered the store briefly that day, hoping to find a small, affordable charm bracelet for her daughter's birthday. Now she faced years in prison for a crime she didn't commit. Across the courtroom, the prosecutor, a confident man with sharp features and an air of entitlement, paced as he delivered his opening statement. His voice was calm, but carried a subtle undercurrent of condemnation. He painted Anna not just as a thief, but as someone inherently untrustworthy. "The evidence speaks for itself," he declared, gesturing toward the table where grainy photographs and unclear security footage were displayed. The defendant was in the store at the time of the theft. Her presence, her actions, they all point to guilt. Anna's appointed defense attorney, a young man with nervous energy, shuffled his notes and tried to respond, but his voice lacked the power and conviction to counter the prosecutor's narrative. Anna felt her stomach tighten. The man meant well, but he was clearly out of his depth. The judge, an older man with silver hair and a stern expression, listened intently but rarely looked at Anna. His gaze lingered more on the prosecutor, nodding occasionally as if in agreement. In the gallery, a small audience sat watching the trial unfold. Some whispered quietly, their murmurs rising and falling like waves. A few faces held open curiosity, others seemed hardened, as though they had already decided her fate. Among them sat a woman who stood out, dressed elegantly in a tailored suit, her presence commanding yet quiet. She watched everything, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Anna felt as if the walls were closing in. Every piece of the prosecution's argument seemed designed not just to accuse her, but to strip her of her humanity. It wasn't just about proving guilt or innocence. It was about creating a narrative where she had no place to stand, no voice to defend herself. When the security guard took the stand, Anna clenched her fists beneath the table. He claimed to have seen her holding the necklace. Yet the footage they presented was inconclusive, blurry images that could have been anyone. "I remember her face," the guard said firmly. "She looked suspicious." The prosecutor smirked and nodded. It was a single word, suspicious, yet it carried a weight that Anna could feel pressing against her chest. She wanted to shout, to ask how they could call her suspicious just for being there. But she stayed silent, knowing how her anger might be perceived. The defense attorney attempted to poke holes in the guard's testimony, asking about the inconsistencies in the timeline and the lack of clear evidence, but his questions faltered under the prosecutor's rebuttals. Anna glanced at the jury. Most of them avoided her gaze. A few looked sympathetic, but others seemed detached, as if they were weighing her worth against the prosecutor's confident assertions. From the corner of her eye, Anna noticed the elegantly dressed woman scribbling something in a notebook. For a moment, their eyes met. The woman gave her a small, knowing nod. It was the first flicker of hope Anna had felt all day. As the first day of the trial dragged on, the prosecutor's case grew more pointed. Every word, every gesture seemed crafted to portray Anna not as a person, but as an archetype, someone they had already decided couldn't possibly be innocent. By the time the session ended and the judge adjourned for the day, Anna felt utterly drained. She stepped out of the courtroom and into the cold air, wondering how she had come to this place, how the simple act of walking into a store had spiraled into a nightmare. But in her heart, she held on to one truth. She was innocent. And no matter what they said or how hard they tried to twist the narrative, she would not let them take that from her. The next morning, Anna sat in the courtroom once more, her posture upright, though exhaustion was etched into her face. The prosecutor continued his relentless assault, painting a picture of her as someone who had entered the jewelry store with intent, stolen the necklace, and slipped away unnoticed. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, pacing before them, his voice smooth and confident. "The evidence might not be perfect, but the circumstances are clear. She was there, she had the opportunity, and she left just as the item went missing. That's no coincidence." Anna clenched her fists under the table. She wanted to shout that she'd left because her daughter was sick at school and she needed to pick her up, but her attorney had advised her to stay quiet. The prosecutor brought the store's manager to the stand, a middle-aged man with a professional air. "We've never had an incident like this before," the manager said. "It's a shame, really. We pride ourselves on running a reputable establishment." The implication hung in the air like a storm cloud. He didn't need to say it outright. His tone said enough. The defense attorney tried to cross-examine, asking about the lack of clear footage and why the store's security cameras had failed to provide a better view of the alleged theft. But the manager's responses were measured and polite, each one subtly reinforcing the prosecutor's story. When it was Anna's turn to take the stand, her heart pounded. She knew this was her chance to speak her truth, to show the jury who she really was. She took a deep breath and looked at the jury, her voice steady despite the weight of their gazes. "I went to that store to find a birthday present for my daughter," she began. "She loves charm bracelets, and I thought I could find something small but special for her." She explained how she had browsed the cases, unable to find anything within her budget, and had left quickly when she got a call from her daughter's school. Her words were simple, heartfelt, and sincere. The prosecutor, however, was quick to pounce. "So you admit you were in a hurry," he said, his tone sharp. "Isn't it possible you took the necklace without thinking anyone would notice?" Anna's stomach churned. She knew what he was doing, twisting her words, making her sound careless. "No," she said firmly. "I didn't take anything. I wouldn't do that. I've worked my whole life to provide for my daughter honestly." The prosecutor's smirk didn't waver. He asked more questions, each one a trap designed to chip away at her credibility. Anna answered as clearly as she could, but she could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken doubts hanging in the air. The prosecution played the grainy security footage again, pointing to a figure in the background that they claimed was Anna. The image was too blurry to confirm anything, but the prosecutor's narrative was relentless. "It's clear enough," he said, addressing the jury. "You can see her movement, her hesitation before leaving. That's not the behavior of someone who's shopping. It's the behavior of someone trying to avoid being caught." Anna's attorney objected, pointing out that the footage proved nothing, but the damage had been done. The prosecutor's words lingered, feeding the jury's suspicions. As the trial wore on, Anna noticed the elegantly dressed woman from the gallery again. She was still there, watching every moment with a piercing intensity. When the prosecutor finished his closing arguments, the woman stood and approached the defense table during a brief recess. "I'm Ellen Randolph," she said, introducing herself quietly but firmly. "I own the store where this supposedly happened." Anna blinked, stunned. Ellen handed a folded piece of paper to Anna's attorney. "This is a statement from one of my employees," Ellen continued. "She noticed something off about the timing of the theft. I also have footage from a neighboring store's cameras. It's clear as day who really took that necklace, and it wasn't you." Anna's heart raced. Could this be the lifeline she so desperately needed? When the trial resumed, Ellen spoke up before the proceedings could continue. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady but commanding, "I have evidence that will change the direction of this case." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The judge allowed her to speak, though his expression showed irritation at the interruption. Ellen presented the new footage. It was clear, unlike the store's grainy videos. The real culprit was a different woman altogether. a white woman in a coat similar to Anna's. The jury leaned forward, their expressions shifting as the truth became undeniable. The prosecutor stammered, trying to salvage his case, but the evidence was irrefutable. Anna's attorney, for the first time, stood tall, his voice ringing with confidence as he called for the charges to be dismissed. The tide had turned, but Anna could still feel the weight of everything she'd endured. The relief that washed over her was tempered by the knowledge of how close she'd come to losing everything. All because no one had bothered to look beyond assumptions and blurry footage. The courtroom was silent, save for the occasional creak of a chair or a muffled cough, as the judge reviewed the newly presented evidence. The clarity of the footage provided by Ellen Randolph was undeniable. The true culprit, clearly visible in the video, bore no resemblance to Anna Jackson. Anna sat frozen, her breath caught in her chest, as the judge's expression shifted from skepticism to reluctant acceptance. For the first time since the trial began, she felt the faintest glimmer of hope. After what felt like an eternity, the judge spoke. "In light of this new evidence, it is clear that a mistake has been made. The charges against Ms. Jackson are hereby dismissed." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Anna's hands flew to her face as tears of relief began to flow. She had dreamed of hearing these words, yet they felt surreal after everything she had endured. The prosecutor, now visibly flustered, attempted to salvage his reputation. "Your Honor, I assure you, this was a misunderstanding." But the judge cut him off with a sharp glare. "A misunderstanding that nearly cost an innocent woman her freedom," he said sternly. "This court will not tolerate such oversight." Anna's defense attorney, who had seemed unsure of himself throughout the trial, finally stood tall, his shoulders squared. He placed a comforting hand on Anna's shoulder, whispering, "It's over. You're free." As the courtroom emptied, Ellen approached Anna. Her presence was steady and grounding, like a beacon in the chaos. "Ms. Jackson," Ellen began, her voice warm but firm, "I want to apologize on behalf of my store. This never should have happened." Anna blinked back tears, unsure how to respond. "You didn't have to do this," Anna managed to say, her voice trembling. "I did," Ellen replied. "Too often people are quick to assume, quick to judge. It's our responsibility to stand up when we see wrong being done. You deserve better than what you've been through." Ellen handed Anna a card with her number and a promise of support, should she need anything further. Anna clutched it tightly, feeling gratitude she couldn't fully put into words. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. News of the trial and the dramatic turn of events spread quickly, sparking conversations about the fairness of the justice system. Anna, however, stayed focused on rebuilding her life and protecting her daughter from the ordeal's emotional toll. The judge and prosecutor faced scrutiny for their handling of the case. Ellen, leveraging her influence, pushed for changes in how investigations were conducted in her stores and advocated for better practices in local law enforcement. But Anna's story didn't end there. Instead of retreating into her life quietly, Anna decided to turn her experience into action. She began speaking at community events, sharing her story, and encouraging others to fight for fairness and accountability. "What happened to me could happen to anyone," she told a captivated audience at her first public appearance. "But it's not about anger or blame. It's about making sure this doesn't happen again." She launched an initiative to provide legal aid for those without the resources to defend themselves, naming it after her late mother, who had always taught her the value of standing up for what was right. One evening, Anna sat with her daughter on the porch of their modest home. The air was cool, and the stars twinkled overhead. "Mommy," her daughter asked, "why did those people think you did something bad?" Anna paused, considering her answer carefully. "Sometimes people make quick decisions without knowing the whole story," she said gently. "But what's important is that we never stop telling the truth, no matter how hard it gets." Her daughter nodded, seeming to absorb the lesson. "Does that mean you're like a superhero now?" the girl asked with a grin. Anna laughed softly and pulled her daughter close. "No, baby," she said. "I'm just a mum trying to make the world a little better for you." Anna's journey didn't erase the pain of what she endured, but it transformed it into something powerful. Her story became a rallying cry, inspiring others to seek justice, fairness, and accountability. And for Anna, the most important victory was knowing that she had fought back and won, not just for herself, but for every person who might one day face the same struggle. The courtroom victory had set Anna Jackson free, but it was not the end of the story. What followed was a reckoning, not just for those who had wronged her, but for the system that had so easily let it happen. The judge, now under scrutiny from local officials and media, released a public statement addressing the case. He admitted that his decisions had been influenced by incomplete evidence and a failure to question the prosecutor's narrative. Though his words stopped short of an outright apology, they marked a rare moment of accountability. The prosecutor, on the other hand, faced harsher consequences. The case's mishandling, combined with public backlash, led to an internal review. Investigations revealed that similar cases had been rushed or poorly investigated under his watch. As a result, he was suspended and his reputation tarnished. For Anna, it wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring that no one else would have to endure what she had. Anna's ordeal resonated deeply within her community. Churches, local organizations, and even schools began holding forums to discuss the importance of fairness and integrity. Neighbors who had once overlooked Anna's struggles now rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. At one such gathering, a pastor addressed the crowd. "What happened to our sister Anna reminds us all to stand vigilant. It's not enough to assume someone else will act when we see injustice. We must all play our part." Ellen Randolph, whose intervention had changed the course of Anna's trial, became a vocal advocate for reforms. She met with city officials and pushed for stricter oversight of local law enforcement and judicial practices. "This isn't about one person or one case," Ellen said in an interview. "It's about ensuring fairness for everyone, no matter their background or circumstances." Though overwhelmed at first by the sudden attention, Anna gradually embraced her role as a symbol of perseverance. She was invited to share her story at community centers, schools, and even universities. At one such event, she stood before a crowd of young students, her voice steady and calm. "I'm not here because I wanted to be. I'm here because I had to be. What happened to me could have broken me, but instead it pushed me to fight. And I'm standing here today to remind you, your voice matters. Use it." Her words were met with thunderous applause, and afterward, students lined up to thank her. One young woman, with tears in her eyes, said, "Hearing you speak gave me the courage to stand up for myself. Thank you." Despite the public support, Anna had her private battles. Returning to her life wasn't easy. She faced questions at her job, where some colleagues looked at her differently, as though the trial had left an indelible mark on her character. Still, she persevered, driven by the love for her daughter and a newfound sense of purpose. She worked tirelessly to rebuild her career, eventually earning a promotion that allowed her to influence policies within her workplace. Anna also channeled her energy into the foundation she had created, using donations and community support to provide legal assistance to others in need. Months later, Anna found herself back in court, but this time as an observer. A young man, also accused of a crime he didn't commit, was facing a trial eerily similar to hers. Anna's foundation had taken on his case, ensuring he had a strong defense. Watching the proceedings, Anna felt a mix of emotions: anger at how easily the system repeated its mistakes, but also pride in knowing she was making a difference. When the young man was acquitted, he approached Anna with tears in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "Just pay it forward," Anna replied with a warm smile. "When you see someone who needs help, don't hesitate to give it." As the months turned into years, Anna's life became a testament to resilience. Her daughter, now old enough to understand more of what had happened, often called her a hero. But Anna would always shake her head and smile. "I'm not a hero," she'd say. "I'm just someone who refused to give up." Anna's story continued to inspire change, not just in her community, but beyond. Her foundation grew, her voice reached more people, and her determination never wavered. In the end, her greatest victory wasn't the courtroom decision. It was the knowledge that she had turned her pain into purpose, leaving a legacy of hope and justice for future generations.